There should be a limit placed on the number of residential properties one can own. A large problem in the current housing market is that the majority of residential properties are owned by wealthy individuals or large real estate companies. In the past, before large corporations owned a large share of residential real estate, rentable residential real estate was owned by a large number of moderately well-off individuals, as opposed to a small number of very wealthy individuals and large corporate entities. In the absence of large companies buying up land, rental properties were cheaper and owning real estate was more affordable. Now, however, much of the housing market is owned by people who do not themselves inhabit the homes or properties they rent out. Their wealth is earned by collecting rent on the expense of others. What would it look like if the government were to pass a well-written law forbidding companies and individuals from owning over a certain number, say 5, single-family housing units, excluding apartment complexes or something along those lines? Would this make the housing market more affordable? I'm no economist, so I am curious to know what some of you might think. Number 1. Corporations should never be allowed to purchase residential property. Corporate ownership of single-family homes is going to go poorly for us. Just look at the housing crisis in Ireland, and it's already starting to get like that in Florida. People paying what used to be rent for a full house just to get a room in a shared home. Florida is trying to do away with property tax entirely and tax goods and services, instead, only adding to the misery of trying to pay for day-to-day needs. The corporate landlords will certainly be the beneficiaries of that. My county has a separate tax bracket for non-owner-occupied residences, houses, townhouses, duplexes, etc. It is significantly higher and has helped keep the landlord invasion at bay where I live. They would just use shell companies. But forbidding companies from owning residential housing would be a good start. I've always been a favor of a sliding property tax rate, plus 25%, or whatever number, of the original valuation for every home owned. After a few houses, you're at a point where it's just not financially feasible to own that many properties, and even those who could technically afford it wouldn't, because it's a bad investment. It's a common myth, but by far, the biggest impact on a short supply of housing is zoning restrictions and HOAs that enforce minimum lot sizes, restrict high-density housing, and ban alternative dwelling units. Oddly enough, rent control also restricts the housing supply and drives prices up in NYC. Zoning restrictions are usually in place to protect housing prices and price out those people, depending on which minority groups are in the area. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 65.9% of American homes are owned by their occupants. There are lots of affordable homes. They just aren't where you want to live. Trust me, I live in one of them now, and you would not want to live here. You're right. And that number should be 0 single-family dwellings for corporations. They're our biggest problem right now. Corporations are buying up whole neighborhoods to rent them out and control pricing. For normal people, that number should be 2. And any additional dwellings should be taxed to a point to make it unprofitable. Even simpler and more effective solution: no corporation or limited liability company can own or lease any residential property. The national company that owns the house I rent owns 2,400 houses in my county alone. They were almost all purchased after 2019. Their houses are on the higher end for this market, but they will let them sit empty for 4 months rather than lower the rent amounts, and I think it's having a significant impact on rental costs here. One home, 2%. 2 homes 3% on the least expensive, 3 homes 5% on the least expensive, 3% on the middle, 4 10%, 5 15%. Make it a luxury to own a second home, but not unreasonable. But once you start to get up there, you're going to break the bank. This would also stop people from hiding money in residential property. Currently, people will buy expensive high-rise apartments and never visit them. They are just an investment that they trade around like they are Bitcoin. No, there should not be a limit.
Yes, 1.
For private individuals, the limit should be 2. 2. If you want to buy a different property that would take you above 2, then you have to sell a property first. For corporations, the limit should be 0. 0. For foreign corporations or foreign individuals, the limit should be 0. 0. There's a family around the area that's buying properties, and 9 of the 10 houses they've bought have been torn down. It's legal, but it's causing concern. It's more complex than that. If you like the number of purchasers by regulation, then you limit the demand and the supply will drop. The challenge most renters face is loan qualification and dollar down. This doesn't solve it. Increasing the supply and changing financing laws is a better policy. Of the end goal is to 1. Stabilize the rental market, and 2. Enable home purchasing for the average Joe. The difficulty in qualifying to purchase a home leads to the opportunity to make a return and further leads to residential property ownership as an investment. If the occupancy rates were higher, this would dissuade investment and drive down purchase price. That limit should be 1. Fight me. Corporations aren't problem. As an overall percentage, core that own more than a handful of homes own a fraction of the housing supply of single-family homes. It is silly to think that large apartment blocks shouldn't be owned by corporations. The problem is we haven't built enough homes. We need to throw everything out that is prevent this. Can't have affordable housing and housing as a profitable investment simultaneously. If housing is an investment, then investors will bid up the prices over residents, making it unaffordable. If housing stays affordable, it isn't a good investment. Management companies shouldn't be allowed to buy entire neighborhoods and rent the homes out.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.